Recognizing the importance of the Temple Mount to peoples of all three monotheistic faiths, Jews, Muslims, and Christians, Israel reaffirms its commitment to upholding unchanged the status quo on the Temple Mount, in word and in practice.
The Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, 1902–1994, was a highly influential figure in Judaism and beyond. As the seventh and last Rebbe of the Chabad Lubavitch movement, he transformed a Hasidic sect into a global phenomenon. His teachings, leadership, and outreach efforts left an enduring impact on religious life, particularly within Judaism, but also extending to people of other faiths and backgrounds. The Rebbe was revered as a spiritual leader and scholar. His teachings, rooted in Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah, and Hasidic philosophy, emphasized the importance of love, joy, and intellectual engagement with Torah study. He encouraged individuals to find personal meaning and connection to God in their daily lives, fostering a sense of purpose and fulfillment. The Rebbe's charismatic personality and deep compassion drew people from all walks of life to seek his guidance and blessings. His talks and writings continue to inspire and guide countless individuals in their spiritual journeys. One of the Rebbe's most significant contributions was his emphasis on outreach, kiruv, and Jewish education. He initiated numerous programs aimed at bringing Jews closer to their heritage and fostering a deeper understanding of Judaism. The Rebbe's emissaries, shluchim, were sent to establish Chabad centers in cities around the world, creating a vast network of educational and social services. These centers offer classes, holiday programs, and community events, providing a welcoming space for Jews of all backgrounds to explore their faith. The Rebbe's outreach efforts extended beyond the Jewish community. He engaged in dialogues with leaders of other faiths, promoting understanding and cooperation. His message of universal morality and social responsibility resonated with people from diverse backgrounds, making him a respected figure in interfaith circles. The Rebbe was a passionate advocate for social justice and tikkun olam, repairing the world. He encouraged his followers to engage in acts of kindness, charity, and community service. The Rebbe's initiatives included campaigns for drug prevention, education, and support for Israel. He emphasized the importance of using one's talents and resources to make a positive impact on society. The Rebbe's impact on the religious landscape is profound. He revitalized Jewish life, bringing a sense of joy, relevance, and purpose to countless individuals. His emphasis on outreach and education has made Judaism accessible and meaningful to people who may have felt disconnected from their heritage. The Rebbe's message of love, kindness, and social responsibility continues to inspire people of all faiths to make a positive difference in the world. In addition, the Rebbe, a highly respected rabbi with influence extending to the White House, became a spiritual mentor to Benjamin Netanyahu in 1984. During Netanyahu's appointment as Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, he sought guidance from the revered Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. The Rebbe cautioned Netanyahu about the deceitful and often treacherous nature of the institution he was entering, emphasizing the moral and ethical challenges he would face. A core teaching of the Rebbe was the belief that Jews could accelerate the arrival of the Messiah through faithful adherence to God's will. This adherence included the observance of mitzvot, commandments, and living a life of Torah values. The Rebbe was vocal in his criticism of Jews who were not actively preparing for the Messiah, perceiving this as a resistance to divine will and a neglect of their spiritual responsibilities. He believed that every Jew had a role to play in bringing about this divine era. The Rebbe conveyed to Netanyahu that God had a significant role in store for him, a politically astute message that deeply resonated with the young diplomat. Netanyahu, who was relatively unknown at the time, found the Rebbe's words both inspiring and daunting. The Rebbe passionately urged his followers to construct the Mishkan, a dwelling place for God, as well as the tabernacle, which represented a physical and spiritual home for the divine presence. He spoke extensively about the first and second temples in Jerusalem, emphasizing the urgent need for the third temple, which he believed was essential for the final redemption. There were widespread accounts of a private meeting in which the Rebbe, while Netanyahu was still relatively unknown, prophesied that he would become Israel's final prime minister, ultimately transferring power to the Messiah. This prophecy was delivered with the Rebbe's characteristic intensity and spiritual insight, leaving a profound impact on Netanyahu. Throughout their interactions, the Rebbe consistently reminded Netanyahu of his responsibility to hasten the arrival of the Messiah. He believed that Netanyahu's political career and influence could be instrumental in preparing the world for this transformative event. Since those meetings, Netanyahu has risen to become a prominent figure in the Middle East, with his decisions influencing the White House and political landscapes globally. His leadership has been marked by a strong stance on security, a commitment to Jewish identity, and a complex relationship with the international community. Time passed, and in 1994, the Rebbe passed away. As conflicts arose over the Temple Mount, Netanyahu repeatedly assured that there were no intentions to alter the existing situation. Israel remains steadfast in its commitment to upholding the status quo both verbally and practically, rejecting any suggestions to the contrary. Nevertheless, politics is a complex game, and the aspiration for the Third Temple persists. This aspiration is intertwined with national identity, religious fervor, and geopolitical considerations. In 1967, Jerusalem was entirely reunited under Jewish control for the first time since ancient times, an event interpreted by some as the fulfillment of biblical prophecies. Despite this, the immediate focus was on Israel's survival amidst ongoing conflict, and politicians did not prioritize rebuilding the Jewish temple. Sovereignty over the Temple Mount was transferred to Jordan and Jerusalem's Islamic Council, a decision perceived by some as fostering peace, but by others as a grave error that relinquished Israeli control over the sacred site. This decision continues to be a point of contention and a symbol of the complex interplay between religion, politics, and national identity in Israel. There's a growing interest in Israel about the possibility of building the Third Temple. Traditionally, the government avoided discussing who controlled the Temple Mount, the site where the temple would be built. This reticence stemmed from the sensitive and volatile nature of the site, which holds profound significance not only for Jews, but also for Muslims and Christians. However, recently, politicians have begun openly talking about rebuilding this important Jewish holy site, signaling a shift in public and political discourse. The Temple Mount, known in Hebrew as Har Habayit, holds deep historical and religious significance for the Jewish people. King David established Jerusalem as the capital city approximately 3,000 years ago, and his son, King Solomon, built the first temple there. This temple became the center of Jewish worship and the focal point of Jewish identity. After its destruction by the Babylonians in 586 BCE, the Second Temple was constructed on the same site, completed in 516 BCE, and stood until it was destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE. Each reconstruction marked a significant moment in Jewish history, symbolizing resilience, faith, and the continuity of Jewish national identity. In recent years, Israel has faced numerous wars and conflicts, including ongoing hostilities with neighboring countries and terrorist organizations. This persistent state of conflict has led some to question the conventional approach of delaying the temple's construction. They argue that waiting for a time of peace, which seems perpetually elusive, may no longer be a viable strategy. This sentiment is shared by both liberal and Orthodox Jews, demonstrating a significant shift in public opinion. The desire to rebuild the temple is not confined to a single demographic. It reflects a broader yearning for a return to spiritual and national roots. In the past, many Israelis prioritized peace negotiations and avoided actions that could escalate tensions, believing that diplomatic efforts would eventually lead to a lasting peace. However, the ongoing cycle of war and conflict has led some to reassess this approach. They believe that building the temple could be a way to assert their identity and control over their destiny, regardless of external pressures. This perspective sees the temple as not just a religious symbol, but a statement of national sovereignty and cultural revival. While the question of sovereignty over the Temple Mount remains a sensitive issue, the open discussion about the Third Temple in Israel's parliament, the Knesset, signals a notable change in the country's political landscape. This discourse reflects a broader trend within Israeli society, where traditional taboos are being challenged and reevaluated. The ongoing conflict has clearly influenced these shifting attitudes, as many Israelis grapple with the idea of peace and security in the face of repeated wars. The desire to rebuild the Jewish temple is so strong that some who fight carry symbols of it, openly declaring it must rise again. These symbols include banners, clothing, and other paraphernalia that signal their devotion to this cause. This symbolic representation underscores the deep-rooted passion and religious fervor surrounding the aspiration to see the Third Temple constructed. There's widespread agreement that the temple stood on the Temple Mount 2,000 years ago, but the exact spot within that complex remains a subject of ongoing debate and scholarly inquiry. Solomon's temple, in particular, is thought to have possibly stood on the solid rock where the Dome of the Spirit now sits, or perhaps behind the Dome of the Rock. This site, currently occupied by Islamic holy sites, is believed by some scholars and religious adherents to have been the foundation of Solomon's sacred temple. Solomon's era saw the smaller Temple Mount filled with various structures, including the temple itself, his palace, and the palace of his Egyptian wife. Those favoring this location argue that Solomon used the rock as a sacred space for sacrifices, aligning with descriptions found in ancient texts. The difficulty of archaeological work in Jerusalem is evident in the differing opinions among historians and archaeologists. The Temple Mount's sensitive political and religious status severely limits excavation and research. Some theories place the temple directly under the Dome of the Rock, where a large limestone slab, believed by many to be the foundation stone of the world, currently resides. Others propose it was situated over the vast underground system near the Al-Aqsa Mosque, a network of tunnels and cisterns that could have supported the temple's infrastructure. Some Jews believe the temple could be rebuilt between the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque, sharing the space in a manner that would respect both religious traditions. However, others say this is impossible due to religious and political tensions and the sanctity of the site according to traditional Jewish law. Traditional Orthodox Judaism forbids Jews from walking on the Temple Mount, fearing accidental desecration of the Holy of Holies, the innermost sanctum of the temple, where God's presence was believed to dwell. This prohibition is based on the uncertainty of the exact location of the Holy of Holies, making any inadvertent trespassing a grave sin. However, other Jewish groups claim to have identified the temple's exact spot, asserting that with this knowledge, ascending the mount becomes safe and permissible. These groups have gained significant followers, reflecting a growing trend of Jews visiting the Temple Mount. In recent years, over 50,000 Jews visit the Temple Mount annually, but with strict rules imposed by Israeli authorities and religious leaders. Visitors must follow a set path that avoids the most sacred areas, walk with security escorts to prevent clashes with Muslim worshippers, and adhere to a prohibition against praying on the Mount. This restriction on prayer is enforced to prevent political and religious tensions from escalating, as the site is also one of the holiest in Islam. Despite these limitations, the increasing number of Jewish visitors to the Temple Mount signals a shift in public sentiment and a rekindling of interest in the site's significance. This complex dynamic highlights the profound and often contentious relationship between faith, history, and politics in Jerusalem. The debate over the exact location of the temple and the broader implications of its potential reconstruction continues to evoke strong emotions and differing opinions, reflecting the deep spiritual and cultural importance of this ancient site to many people around the world. The Bible tells us that the third temple in Jerusalem will be built, bringing about the fulfillment of ancient prophecies regarding the Messiah. These prophecies are deeply rooted in Jewish eschatological beliefs and have been a central theme in the faith for millennia. According to texts like the Book of Ezekiel and the Book of Revelation, the construction of the third temple will herald a new era of divine presence and messianic rule. The Temple Institute in Jerusalem, a dedicated organization working towards the reconstruction of the temple, holds a profound faith that God will orchestrate a change in the hearts of Muslims around the world. They envision a future where Muslim leaders will come to recognize the spiritual significance of the Jewish temple and willingly agree to relocate the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque to accommodate its rebuilding. This perspective is rooted in a hopeful interpretation of divine providence and interfaith harmony, reflecting an aspiration for a peaceful resolution to the religious and political complexities of the Temple Mount. Others believe that divine intervention is the only feasible way to change the current situation. Jerusalem, situated along a major tectonic fault line, has a history of significant earthquakes that have periodically devastated the city and its structures. Historical records and geological evidence suggest that another powerful earthquake could occur in the region. Some individuals interpret this potential natural disaster as a divine catalyst for change. They believe that if a massive earthquake were to damage or destroy the Dome of the Rock, it could be seen as a sign from God, signaling the commencement of the construction of the third temple. The Temple Institute has meticulously prepared for this eventuality. They have recreated all the sacred vessels, priestly garments, and architectural plans necessary for the temple's construction, adhering closely to biblical specifications. These preparations underscore their unwavering commitment and readiness to begin building as soon as they perceive divine authorization. The Bible also describes a powerful earthquake that will occur in Jerusalem at the end of the world, particularly in the apocalyptic literature found in the book of Zechariah and the book of Revelation. This prophesied earthquake is said to be so severe that it will split the bedrock of the city, creating a pathway through which people can escape during the final tribulations brought about by the Antichrist. This cataclysmic event is believed to pave the way for the construction of the third temple, physically and symbolically preparing the ground for the new era. The exact location of where the third temple will be built on the Temple Mount remains a crucial question in how these prophecies will be realized. The site is not only of immense religious importance, but also a focal point of geopolitical tension. Various theories and religious interpretations propose different locations within the Temple Mount complex, each with its own implications for the fulfillment of the prophecies. As these discussions continue, the Temple Mount remains a symbol of hope, conflict, and anticipation. For those who advocate for the rebuilding of the temple, the convergence of religious prophecy, divine intervention, and geological events is seen as an inevitable prelude to a new epoch of peace and spiritual renewal. This belief sustains their efforts and shapes their vision for the future of Jerusalem and the world.